Almost 4 months after a wave of protests started rocking Iran, the regime has reportedly detained a prominent chef known for his videos promoting Persian cooking. Navab Ebrahimi was arrested in Tehran and taken to the city's notorious Evin prison. Social media users said the arrest coincided with him posting a recipe to make Persian cutlets, just as Iran marked the 3rd anniversary of the killing of General Qasem Soleimani from the Revolutionary Guards by the U.S. Some Iranian protesters have been posting images of cutlets in reference to the manner of his killing in a U.S. drone strike in Iraq. And this just a day after Iranian authorities released prominent actor Taraneh Alidoosti from prison on bail. Images on Twitter showed her celebrating her release. The Oscar Award winner was arrested nearly 3 weeks ago after criticizing a crackdown on anti-government protests. She posted at least 3 messages in support of the protests on Instagram before her account was disabled. And we can now speak to Sanam Naraghi Anderlini. She's the founder and CEO of the International Civil Society Action Network. Good to see you. Yesterday, Taraneh Alidoosti was released from jail and immediately showed that she could not be intimidated. No hijab, showing the victory sign. Does she stand for a generation that has lost all fear of the regime?
I think it's certainly very courageous and certainly a sign of defiance. So, and being such a prominent person, it certainly, it makes the headlines, obviously. So it is about coming out and showing a sort of a message of strength. Incredibly courageous, of course, as well.
She's out of prison, but that doesn't mean she's safe, does it? What do you think is next for her?
I mean, this is the way that the regime has always played. That people are released and then maybe they're on bail and then they're taken in. There's a sort of an ambiguity about how people are really treated. And going back to the point about the celebrity chef, the fact that we have chefs and directors and actresses and students being arrested, teenagers being arrested and thrown in jail, is really an indication of the sign of weakness of the regime. And I think each of these instances actually gives more fuel and energy to the protest movement.
What can you tell us about the case of Navab Ebrahimi? Because it seems almost absurd that one thing would be connected to the other, doesn't it?
Well, it's as you said in the report that the symbol of the cutlet is something that has been in the social media sphere, and it's just this very sort of ham-handedness of the only tool they seem to have is to threaten and arrest and use threatened violence. And it consistently seems to delegitimize them even further. So, as you said, the younger generation has seen this, that they've been experiencing it for 4 months now, and they're still out there.
And Taraneh Alidoosti was held in the notorious Evin prison, and Ebrahimi is now said to be there as well, alongside many of the detained protesters. What do you know about the situation at the prison and the conditions that people are held in?
So in talking to some of the human rights activists and others who are following these cases, so amongst the things that, there's overcrowding, obviously. There are some reports, it's still a bit scattered around whether there's a harassment of women protesters if they don't comply, and that's something that's really important to be bearing in mind. We've had a number of cases of people coming out with obvious signs of sexual violence as well. Just today, 15 women in a prison near Karaj decided to go on hunger strike because they want to have access to their own lawyers and a fair judicial process. So these things are ongoing. And of course, the other serious concern that everybody has is the sentences of execution, death sentences that are being handed down, those that are implicitly could be killed at any moment. And it's really important to keep the attention on those cases, as well as the very long prison sentences that are being issued. These are all the concerns that are ongoing, and again have been just tactics that the regime is trying to deploy to quell the movement.
Is there enough international pressure, or do you have a sense that after a first wave of solidarity, it is now slowly dying down?
To be honest with you, I think the the amount of international attention has been quite extraordinary. And it's, not only in the cultural space, but amongst politicians and so forth. Obviously, over Christmas, it died down a little bit, but I think the appetite is there. I think the attention is there. And there's a real reason. I mean, historically, we have never had a movement or a revolution that has been galvanizing people across gender and ethnicity and sect and so forth on the message of women's rights, women, life, and freedom. So this is obviously something that is very rooted in Iran, and it's really critical to what's happening in Iran. But it also has global resonance, and I think that's what's captured the world's imagination: to see these young people, to see these girls out on the streets, to see the boys standing side by side with the women. I think the attention is still there, and we certainly need it to continue to be there.
We only have about a minute left, but I do want to ask you about your opinion. We're now almost 4 months into these protests. Where does the regime stand?
I think we see it already. The regime is struggling to know what to do, and it's a legitimacy question. And the legitimacy has been waning over decades in a way, and now they're dealing with a younger generation that's out there. It's across the country in different provinces, and their responses have been so little, so late, and just extraordinary. I mean, over 500 people have been killed, implicitly, in a sense, because of the hijab. And now we're seeing Khamenei come out and say something about, if you're wearing your hijab badly, it's not such a big deal. Well, if they'd said this 4 months ago, maybe things would be different. But I think that there is a serious issue around the regime having lost credibility and legitimacy, and and they have the tools of violence, and they are using their own methods. So if you think about the Charlie Hebdo situation and the closing of the French
we'll have to leave it there.
Institute.
We're unfortunately running out of time. Sanam Naraghi, under Alini of the International Civil Society Action Network, thank you so much.